Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to go through a small, simple introduction to batch files and how to create them, and maybe some uses in which we will want to use batch files. But batch files are basically just simple text files that'll contain line commands that are just like executed sequentially. Batch files we will very commonly use to automate certain tasks, or you might want to just do something very simple. These things can include just like installing a program or installing patches or um, housekeeping on your hard drive. Like the possibilities are pretty much endless. And one of the things with the misconception of batch files is, while a lot of people may feel like, you'll just put a bunch of, command prompt commands together and you'll just run a bunch of stuff, you'll come to see that batch files do support a lot of the standard programming functionality that you'll see, such as, reading inputs from users, displaying outputs, variables, comments, regular expressions, arrays, and decision making. And these all these things can be put together to automate like certain jobs or to reduce the number of like repetitive tasks that you have within like your organization. So without further ado, we'll just get super quick, just dive right into creating batch files, and we'll have a little bit of fun with it. So the first thing we want to know, that we want to know is like, well, so how do we begin even writing batch files in the first place? And the good thing about writing a batch file is that you don't need any sort of like, if expensive or advanced like IDE. You don't need Visual Studio or anything like that. Just like a simple text editor is more than sufficient to be able to write your batch files. What I would recommend using, if you are able to have access to this, is a program called Notepad++. It's essentially Notepad on steroids. It allows for some formatting and structuring of your select languages, and it just makes the writing of batch files a little bit easier if it's a task that you'll do on a consistent basis. I use it quite a bit. It's what I normally will go to when I'm writing, scripts for our network, or if I'm writing scripts for items like on the DGS or GSS, or scripts that I want to integrate into one of our ground support softwares that we use and develop. So there are a lot of different uses for Notepad++. Some people even use it as um, you know, their primary IDE, so to speak, if they aren't able to have access to it. But I will going to say that most people that are doing scripting of any kind will just simply just use Notepad++ to be able to create and edit their script files. So I will now open up Notepad++, and as we can see that, it's just, whoops, that as we can see, this is just a standard, nice, beautiful, clean little interface. Is very easy to navigate. Just a couple of key things that you can do here. There is a run command, so if you are running maybe like a Python script, or you want to, or something like it with a PHP, and you want to be able to go ahead and execute and do those, you could just run this, or you can hit F5. I mean, you can also do this with batch files as well, but for the sake of familiarity with the command line, we'll just be running our items through the command line rather than using it here. But down the road, when we're writing VB script or JavaScript, or running Python or anything like that, then we will just go down here and run it through, or take it through the run command. The other very useful part of Notepad++ is actually this section right here. This is called language. So that, going back to what I was saying earlier with Notepad++, in terms of being able to format and structure your code in a way that aligns with the language that you're using, then you would do that here. So what I mean by that is, say like we were writing something in, say, like a C sharp, I can go over here down to C, and I see C sharp. And if we click on C sharp, then now the text editor is going to highlight the C sharp keywords and reserve words, and recognize the things that you would normally do in a C sharp program. So I mean, it's so all of a sudden like C# comments will look just fine. So we can go through here, for example. I'm just going to write this. This is a C# comment, and 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 then as you can see, the IDE is now commenting out in the classic, dark tree ring color that you usually see when you comment out items or create comments within Visual Studio. But these are very useful. I highly recommend. You don't have to set a specific language. I mean, you could just make it be like just normal text if if that's what you want. But um, it definitely would take a little bit of time, just like go in there, see if like the language. I mean, and there's a ton of languages here, so if you write it, then it's probably going to work. Let me see if I put on HTML. This ain't anything you would write in an HTML document, so it looks black because it's like I don't really even know what this is. So but all right. Well, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. And since we are working with batch files and writing things into command prompt, we're going to set our language. Whoops. We're going to set our language to batch. So we're just going to go down here to B, select batch. And now the text editor is going to recognize all the keywords that are going to go with creating a batch file. So now we want to create our introductory files, and so inside of the lesson, we created we were using the example of a file that is called test.bat. So batch files can either end with the .bat or the .cmd extension. Both of them are valid. That Windows will recognize and auto execute upon typing their name. But the most common one will be the BAT. It's a very identifiable. When Windows shows in the File Explorer, you'll see the little file with the little gear symbol like in the middle. And so we're going to go through and we're just going to create a quick batch file, an empty file. So we're just going to go here to File and Save. And I created a folder on my C drive that's just like an IQT folder here already, and I already have a file that is created that's already called test. And so like I'm gonna just delete this one, and we're gonna create a new file that's gonna be called test. And we're gonna click save. You can do this anywhere on your file system. It doesn't really matter where you save it. You can just save it straight to your desktop for ease of access. So we're going to create tests. Our file save type down here is just going to be batch file, because this already defaulted to batch file because our language up here was already set to batch file. So when you go to do a save as, this may not be there by default, but you'll just want to go to that drop down, click on batch file, and you'll be good to go. And we're going to click save. So now we have our blank test.bat file, and we can begin to write some stuff. So in the previous lesson, we went through a couple of basic commands that you can use to navigate through the file system within or through the Windows file system. And those commands were cd and dir. If you forgot, like cd is for change of directory and moving about the file system, and then we use dir to be able to see the contents of a directory, whether it be the current directory or we can peek into a current directory that we want to be able to move into. And the dir command actually produces a result on the screen. Going into our command prompt, as you remember, if we type in dir, then we see the list, the contents that are within just that current directory that we're currently in, which is my C drive. So now what we can do is take one of those basic commands. In this case, we're going to take that dir command and we're going to turn that into a very simple batch file that will take the output of that dir command and write it into a text file that we can just view in Notepad or some other text editor. And so that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to go back over here to our batch file, and we're going to create that. So one thing that a lot of batch files contain will be a command that looks like this, that is called echo off. And so what echo off does is that it will ensure that the commands that are throughout the batch file won't be displayed as they're being ran. This might be useful for like if you're doing a installation or maybe you're applying a patch and you just wanted to just run, execute, and then you want to send the user a result that the script had been completed. And this is perfectly fine, and in a lot of situations that's very desirable. And there are some cases that which that a lot of batch files will not have this option on, and you will see, say, if it's a batch file that is moving files around on a file system, it'll list everything that is going through the copy, the paste, the move, the delete, um, because that could be information that maybe a user may want to go back and look, or you want to see what a current status is on like where the progression is in the batch file itself. And so this is where that would become very useful. You can accomplish that in other ways, but very commonly, you'll see that this is set to off, the echo is set to off, and then if there needs to be text that needs to be displayed on the screen, then we can use the echo command again to do just that, and which will lead into the echo command. So the echo command itself is the basic print function of any programming language. We use echo simply to display information on the screen. And so for our script, so since we're writing a script and we just want to you know, pipe some output to a text file, we are just going to go through, and I'm going to go ahead and delete echo off, and we're just going to type in echo, and we're going to call it our first script. So we will go in and we will do echo in our first script. And so right now, so if we were to save this and run this batch file right now, then we would just get our first script would show up on the next line on the command prompt. And actually, we can go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to save this right now, and we will go into our command prompt, and we will navigate to that folder. Right now, I'm currently in the C drive, and so I need to get to the IQT folder that we saved we saved our batch file in. So I'm gonna go CD and move into the IQT folder, and we're in here, and I did another DR, and we see that we have the test.bat file that is just right here. So now, in order to execute that batch file, all we have to do is type the name of the batch file. You can just type in test, or you can type in test.bat. Like Windows is going to recognize it as a executable in itself, just as if you're running an exe file or a COM file. And so it'll just take it, run it, and do whatever the contents of that file is. If we have an error or if we have bad syntax within that file, then the interpreter is going to come back and tell us that. But we ran a simple echo command, so there shouldn't be any problem. So we're just going to type test.bat, and you can see right here that our output was our first script. So we're going to clear the screen. And now here's the meat. Now we're going to get into the meat of the program. And so now we want to take that dir command that we learned from the previous lesson, and we want to take the contents of a folder and we want to output it to a text file. In this folder, let's see, we'll just go ahead and navigate to this IQT folder. So in this folder, I have file 1 through 7. These are just blank text files that are currently in there that is created for the purpose of this demonstration. And what we're going to do is we're going to take everything that is inside of this folder and we're going to just pump it to a text file using our command line, our batch file. So that will be accomplished by using our dir command, let's remember, and we're going to type the path of the directory that we want to run the command on, which is our IQT folder. And we are going to use the redirection modifier, which is a greater than sign. So what the redirection modifier does is that it will take the output of whatever the command that precedes it and place it into any valid file name or path that follows after it. So this doesn't have to necessarily be a text file. We could just name this just like a really cool file, like literally name a really cool file, no extension, and it'll literally create that file with that name without that extension. It'll be just called a file, and when we right click and do an open or edit within a notepad, then it'll still have that same content that is inside of it. So you could do this. I mean, you could do this with a variety of file types, but you always want to make sure that the output of what you're taking out matches what the file type that you're trying to create. In most cases, I mean almost in every case actually, most command line outputs are going to be some sort of text output or some text notification to the user, and so we will be piping these to text files. So we don't want to assume the current directory that we are writing to, and so we're going to we're going to explicitly put the directory that we want to output everything output our file to into the script. For the sake of this demonstration, we're just going to use the exact same folder that we have the batch script in. So we will do that, and we'll put in our // IQT, and we're just going to call the output file test.txt. So this line of code is kind of go back to review. It's going to run the dir command, and it's going to take the output of the dir command for that folder, and we're going to output those results to a file in that folder called test.txt. And just to close it out, just to make sure that the user would know that our script has been accomplished, we're just going to do a script complete. And that's pretty much it. So we're gonna save our file, and we're gonna go back into the command prompt, and we are going to run the test.bat file again. And so as you can see, it went through our first line, our first script was displayed. Because we did not put the echo off command in there, we see that it created we can see the output here that's being displayed, and we got the script complete. So if we do a dir/w, then we see that there is a test.txt file that's been created. And if we go back to our file explorer, we can double click, open up test.txt, and now we see that we have the results of that output now placed inside of that text file. So just to kind of show what that would look like if we did not use that, or if we did put echo off in there, then we can go ahead and run that really quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that test file really quick. And we're gonna go back to our Notepad++, and I'm actually gonna take this out, and I'm going to turn it into echo off. And we're gonna see what the result of that is doing that. So now, if we go back and type in test.bat again, now you see we just get script complete. So we run it. We know we didn't have any errors. If some would have went wrong, or if we would have wrote our script incorrectly, or we had a bad file path, or anything that would have went wrong, we would have saw that output right here, and we would have had a command line thing, and that would have gave us what we needed to know to go back and edit or debug, quote unquote, the tech or the script file. But we know that it ran. It just says test complete. And now we can go back through, we do our dir again, and then we have our test.txt that is now there again that we can open up, run, and do that. And then also, I mean, of course, you can just run it as an executable. As you can see here, the test.bat has those little gears that are placed in there. So that's a denotation of when it's batch file. You can right click on it and you can run it as administrator. You just run it and it'll do the exact same thing. And then we still have our text file here. So those are different ways to be able to execute the batch file. And that is pretty much it for this current lesson. So just kind of like to review, going through. I mean, bash files are just simple text files that go through and apply simple commands. They can be simple commands to run, or they could be complex and can do various tasks such as automating tasks or displaying data or doing house cleaning on your system or on a server and everything in between. The possibilities are endless in what you would be able to do with a batch file, and a lot of organizations use it to simplify a lot of tasks, save them a lot of time, and get rid of a lot of redundancy in their day-to-day lives. So it gets much more interesting from here, and we're gonna dive in next time. We're gonna look at creating batch files that do some input and output, maybe displaying a prompt and displaying some results back to the user, as well as variables and storage and how we store that data that input that comes in from that user. And then we're going to take a quick look at setting up the environment so you can essentially create your own command prompt commands, so to speak, that you can be able to access from anywhere within the file system. And I will explain that in the next lesson. So I hope everybody is doing well. Hopefully everybody's enjoying this so far and enjoying the pacing. And I look forward to teaching the next lesson.